what am I supposed to use? My name's Greg. You're watching How to Play Paintball. All right, so in this video, what I wanted to do was actually go through basically what's the equipment that I should be using depending on where you're at. And I split this up, and you could fall between certain areas, but what I've done is I've narrowed it down to weekend warrior. It's just someone that goes out maybe more consistently, but they might go once or twice a month. It's not something, they just want to go out and play, have some fun. It's not something that they're really taking all that seriously, that kind of a person. The second is someone that's more serious, that maybe does some local tournaments. They're not traveling super far for anything, but you're playing more consistently, maybe every week if you can, that kind of a person. And then the last one is a true tournament player, and this is someone that's going to be traveling more often. It could be that you're traveling all over your state for a certain series. I'm not saying that it's only in the NXL, but it's going to be someone that is focused more on progressing throughout the tournament series. Maybe you are playing in the NXL, in like the national series, or if you're playing a very consistent couple local leagues, just someone that's a lot more serious with the sport itself. So before we actually get into the breakdown of my recommendations of each of those kinds of players, what equipment you should definitely have, I wanted to give a shout out to punisherspb.com. Thank you so much for sponsoring this video. If you use Watch, Learn, Win in your checkout, you're actually going to get some free stuff with your order. So please support those that support the channel. All right, so first let's go ahead and look at the weekend warrior. So the most important thing is honestly going to be a mask. You can go and use rentals, and a lot of fields are good with cleaning out those masks. It's just one of those things that, like, if you can afford it, that would be the main purchase that I would say. Go and buy a mask that fits you well, that you can breathe in. Everyone's head is a little bit different, so it's going to be something that is going to be beneficial, because the more easily you can breathe and communicate, and the more comfortable the mask is. Not that the rental ones aren't comfortable, but usually they're more lower end and not going to be the most comfortable. They're just there so that you can go and play. It's not going to be like my CMD, which is going to be very comfortable, but that's the higher end of your mask that you have out there. So that would be definitely the biggest recommendation. Now, if you wanted to, this is depending on cash, and I understand that it can be really tight, especially if you're just a weekend warrior, you just want to go and have some fun. A marker setup is good to have. I'm not saying that you need to go out and get like a MacDev XTS like I have, with my control and, my powerhouse reg on my tank. I'm not saying go and get that, but there are a lot of used options. Actually, punisherspb.com has a used gear section. So you can go and see, okay, it's kind of like you buy a used car. It's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just that it's going to be a little bit cheaper, but it gets the job done. You're not racing. You don't need to go buy a Ferrari. So it's kind of like that. The other thing I would say is a pack if you wanted to. Now, this is also going to come down to money. It's something that will help, just because, again, you have a pack that's comfortable. It's not going to be stretched out. It's not going to be uncomfortable to use. But if you wanted to go out, be able to use some extra paint, you're going to be able to go ahead and do that. Now, I wouldn't say that it's super important to have a jersey or any high-end paintball pants. If you're just going out every once in a while and just going to have some fun, it's not something that's going to be super important. Now, if you have the money and you want to go do that, absolutely. The jerseys are great because they're moisture wicking. The paintball pants have more stretch areas, so that way it's going to be easier to move around in. They're made for paintball. But if all you have are, you went to like an Army Navy store, you just got some like BDUs or whatever, and you're just wearing those, or just jeans, that's completely fine. You're just going out there to have some fun. Definitely the most important thing, though, is going and getting a comfortable mask. That is my recommendation for the weekend warrior, because you can go and rent a marker, go have some fun, and then come back, whenever it is in the next 3 weeks after you kind of take some time off, save up some money, and then go out and play again. All right, so let's say that now you're getting more serious, you're starting to want to play more local tournaments. Maybe your field has its own little series. It's not like the MVPS down here in Florida. They go around Florida. It's something that maybe, yeah, your local field has something. So yeah, you want to go in and kind of get a little bit more serious. Definitely that mask is super important. Now, a marker setup is something that you want to have. You want to be more, I'm not saying that, again, you need to buy that Ferrari. Again, punisherspb.com has a whole bunch of used equipment, so that way you can go and still get something that works great. They're going to stand behind what they sell, and it's going to be something that is reliable. Now, how that marker shoots, your preferences, that's all going to be up to you. There's certain markers that shoot a little bit different than others, certain loaders, things like that. But since you're just getting into it, if it's a little bit heavier because it's a little bit older of a model of a marker or a loader, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to be something that's really going to make a huge issue. Right now, if you're getting into that local tournament series, you're getting more serious, you're just trying to get better. So it's not important to go out and buy the super high-end marker that's brand new, because honestly, save that money and go buy some more paint and go play some more. Maybe some sponsors are going to get mad at me for saying that, but going and getting something a little bit cheaper, or even going and getting a new kind of like mid-range marker, like the MacDev XDR just came out. So it's cheaper than like my MacDev XTS. It's something that is meant to be a mid-range marker, and so it's not a super high-end like the XTS, but it's still going to shoot great. For a little while, actually coming up before I went to pro, I used a couple of those mid-range in tournaments. So it's not like you're going to get laughed at if you use something like that. Just go out and find something that is in your price range. Now, you definitely want to have a pack, whether it's strapped or strapless. Like I use a strapless pack. I've been using one now for, it's been 4 years now. 4 years. I used to only use strapped packs. Now I've started to get into the strapless, just going to be quicker. But again, you're in a position right now that it's not super important to focus on like being the super fastest person getting your pod out or whatever. I know that English didn't really make a whole lot of sense. But then also, I would recommend going and getting some padding. Now, same thing. You don't need to go out and buy the super crazy expensive stuff. There's a lot of different options that are out there for you. There's kind of like budget options. So looking for padding is going to be important, just because you want to save your knees, your elbows, your groin, your hips, just because now you're going to be doing a little bit more than you were doing before. When you were a weekend warrior, you weren't really going out and playing super, super hard. Now you're going and playing a lot harder, and it's going to be more consistent. So you just want to save your body in that way. Now, with a jersey and pants, I would recommend that you get something at this point. So there's a lot of companies out there. I mean, our sponsor, ruthlesspb.com, has a bunch of options for like kind of budget jerseys. Why is it important to have a jersey? Well, one, if you're going to be practicing for a tournament, it's good to practice like you play. It's good to have that jersey on. Also, it's going to save your pads. So when you're diving, if you dive and you just have your pads on, after a little while, those pads are going to start to wear down. If you have a jersey in between there, a jersey is going to be cheaper than those pads. So I've had some elbow pads and knee pads that have lasted a long time. I mean, I still have a pair from like a couple years ago that I could probably use like tomorrow if I wanted to. So I highly recommend that. Now, something that is one of those borderline things is going to be a gear bag. So if you are in that budget range that you're able to spend a little bit more, I mean, obviously like Volcano USA, they're great. They've been a huge support of me and the channel. So I highly recommend their gear bag. You guys have seen it before. But if you're starting to travel more, it's good to have it where you're able to have everything all in one place, and it's not just in like a duffel bag, or I've seen people use like a suitcase before. Now, if you're fine with a suitcase and you're not traveling and whatever, for it, like that's not a big deal. It's okay to use that for now. If it's just a local tournament, it's not that big of a deal either. You're able to go and use the equipment that you've spent your money on, and you can work up to that. And last, we have your serious tournament players. Now, again, like I mentioned, this isn't just people that are playing in the full NXL series. It could be someone that is starting to play the larger series in your state, or maybe a couple states. There's some that might travel between there. So this is where, again, you really need to have a high quality mask. You want to make sure that you're able to breathe and communicate really well. Your marker setup, you want to make sure it's reliable. It's probably going to be better if it's newer. The thing with newer markers is, just like a newer car or really newer technology in general, technology improves. So there's going to be improvements that are able to be made that are going to make your game better. Because you're starting to spend a little bit more money on tournaments and traveling, so you want to make sure that you're looking at those. Now, again, that reliability could come from a used marker. Maybe there's someone at your field, or you bought it from punisherspb.com. Any of those is going to be fine. You just want to make sure that it's reliable. Now, your pack and other apparel is going to be super important. If you want to be matching your team, that's completely fine. If you want me to do a video later on sponsorship, I'm happy to do that. I think I have done it before, but I'm happy to kind of redo it and kind of revisit that. So put that in the comments if you guys would like to see that, just because I have some opinions on sponsorship. And then gear bag. I do think it's important at this point to have a gear bag. You're traveling more. You need to have something that is built for the rigors of travel for paintball. You don't want to spend all this money on your gear and then just throw it into like a duffel bag that isn't made for paintball. It's not going to be able to withstand the torture that we can put our gear through. And then also, you got to think about if it's going through and you're traveling, let's say you're starting to fly more, or it's just traveling more in general. You don't want it to be that someone throws their bag on top and it crushes it, or whatever. Like, there's a lot of issues that can come from that. There's a reason why there are paintball bags. There are specific gear bags that are made for paintball, so that way there's a spot for everything. So with the exception of the Weekend Warrior, I would say that you do want to have pods. Now, pods are something that get lost a lot, so it doesn't hurt to have a pod that is like hot pink or something. You can go and buy those, and there's a whole bunch of different colors you can do. I personally really like the Gen X pods. The newer Valken ones actually aren't bad. I know before I had mentioned that Valken pods aren't the best, and the newer ones, we actually used them at a recent practice. I thought, like, oh, these actually worked out pretty well. So they must have changed some things on there. So having pods, you don't need to have a huge bag for yourself, but if you have, you're in that tournament, local tournaments, you can kind of just pool together with your teammates, but it doesn't hurt. I mean, I think I have in my car like 10 pods. So for me, I can go out, if I'm just going to go out on my own, it's not a team practice, I can go ahead and use those and just make sure that I get them back. I mean, I'll like put stickers on them, stuff like that. So that way I can see it. Then I make sure that I leave with the same amount of pods that I came with. Sometimes they're going to break. That's okay. That's paintball. All right, guys, so that is the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you like and subscribe. I've seen that most people that watch these videos actually aren't subscribed. So I do giveaways and stuff, so you want to make sure that you're subscribed for that. The other thing is, thank you again so much to punisherspb.com for sponsoring this video. Thank you all for your support, continued support. Now it's been pretty consistent, so I appreciate that, guys. Please support those that support the channel. Down in the information actually below, I do have a bunch of discount codes for a bunch of different sponsors of ours, so you're able to do that. So let's say that Punisher somehow doesn't have that, then you can go ahead and use those down there. So thank you again, and as always, remember, watch, learn, win. Thanks.